This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bizub. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Good morning, George.
Good morning in our time zone, Dr. Marlene. Great to be with you. I think today's topic is one that's problematic for a lot of parents.
Well, it is. It is. And I know we talk about it a lot and we keep returning to it, but it is a problem. It is a huge problem. And what the topic is parent-child contact problems, otherwise known as resist dynamics. That was hard to say. But especially with teenagers, we get these kids who make up their mind they don't want to see one parent or the other. And I mean, first of all, I'm going to start off by saying this is a developmental need of the child to be a little bit rebellious. And I hate to put it that way, but friends become more important. They're going through this process of individuation and separation. And as you know, George, because you've been around me long enough, you probably knew it before you knew me. But individuation is just the process of becoming your own independent person. You have your own thoughts, feelings, you think for yourself, you live your life kind of away from or outside of just what your parents are doing. In other words, friends become more important. Whatever is going on in your social life to you, to them, is more important than what might be going on with the family. Not always. I don't want to make it sound like, kids just reject their family. It's not that. They reject being told what to do, period. And so often a parent thinks that a kid is refusing contact with them because they just want to be with the other parent. And it's like, no, they don't want to be with either one of you. They want to be with their friends. So, right off the start, let's discuss that. Would you agree that that's what teenagers do and are supposed to do?
Absolutely. Having raised two of my own, I think that's something that I've observed. And I guess it's part of becoming an adult.
It is. It is. This prepares them for adulthood to make their own decisions, have their own schedule, their own social calendar, all of that, decide when they're going to bed and when they're getting up. And they suffer the consequences if they stay up too late and have to get up early. And do we still have to be there and parent them and drag them out of bed? Sometimes, but making those decisions, and I am all about letting kids make those decisions when they're 15, 16, 17, instead of insisting they follow what we say and our schedule. And when they hit 18, they don't have a clue how to manage their own schedule because we have done it for them. So I am all about letting kids fail. What's your thought?
I think that all of us need to learn how to deal with failure and challenge. And
Yes.
so that's what's going on at that time of their lives.
Yeah.
Um, it can be frustrating for a parent. I'm a parent, and
Uh-huh.
if everything works out well, they swing back around to rationality and become pretty fully functioning adults.
Right. Right. And letting kids learn from natural consequences is much more effective than just telling them. Let it happen. And I have a famous story, or it's famous in my mind, but I've told it lots and lots and lots. And it's actually not about my son as a teenager, it's about my son as an elementary school kid. And he did not want to take his coat, did not want to. And I said, dude, it's going to be blowing snow and 15 degrees out when you get out of school, and I cannot pick you up. So take your coat. I'm not cold. It's just going to be in my way all day. So I said, okay, have it your way. Well, he had to walk home from school that day. It was 15 degrees, blowing snow. He didn't have a coat. And he got home and he said, I will never argue with you. He's freezing, he's shivering, and I'll never argue with you again about taking my coat. I was so cold all the way home. And mind you, I got home an hour after he did. And he's still cold and still talking about how cold he was walking home, and he won't argue with me again. And he didn't. Not about that. Not about that. But if you let them learn for natural consequences, you don't have to teach them again. And if it's just you trying to instill that lesson in their minds, you might have to tell them over and over, but let them experience it and you're done.
I think probably we we may handicap children by overly trying to help them. They need to
Mhm.
experience failure. They need to
Yeah.
experience disappointment,
Hmm.
and so we can't shield them, and we do them a disservice, I guess, from shielding them from every natural consequence. It's a
Hmm.
lesson that needs to be learned. The stove is hot, don't touch it. And
Right.
so, but it is in their best interest to learn to deal with disappointment and failure, and to correct failures.
Yes.
Um, so it's an essential part of growing up, I guess.
Well, it is. And that's a good segue back into our topic. If parents will let kids not spend much time with them and then see what happens when they need that parent. And I'm not suggesting the parent not be there for their kid. Okay, I would not suggest that. But the time's going to come when you need that parent and when they will appreciate that parent being there. But trying to get them to just see the importance of spending time with me isn't going to happen so easily. But let them wait until they need me. And now it's a whole different story. Now it's their choice because they recognize that they need me. But it has to be their idea. It really has to be their idea.
Well, and I've seen adults who are very appreciative of their parents,
Hmm.
and and very close to their parents emotionally. So how they got there is a long road, and I guess indicative of a fairly healthy upbringing, that they're close to their parents, and they appreciate their parents more. But it takes some time, and I don't think it
Hmm.
happens instantaneously at 18.
Right, right. No, it doesn't. And to your point, that's a really good point. I have a lot of parents, and I hate to say it, but it often is dad because they tend to place a little more importance and time and effort on their career. And moms usually, I mean, this is stereotypical, but it's been my experience, spend a little bit more focus on the kids. Not that they don't have careers too, but dad's career is often kind of the primary career in the household, if you will. And then they want to get to know their kids. And, or maybe the mom was a stay at home parent. And then the dad tries to step up and, be more involved and get to know their kids. And this is foreign to the kids. And I've got that going on right now with a guy who's got 4 kids, ranging in age from 4 to 14. And he just wasn't there a whole lot. He's a professional. And he wasn't there a whole lot, and she was a stay-at-home mom. Well, now he's trying to establish having them at his home and spending time with them. And I told him the other day they are resisting and they don't want to be there half time. And I told him this is foreign to them. I said, "How much have you, like, really hung out with them and spent time with them, and were you the go-to when they needed nurturing?" And he said, "Well, no, clearly, mom was the go-to when they needed nurturing." And I said, "Well, then you can't just step into that role and say, 'I'm here,' when they aren't used to coming to you." And so it can be a learning curve for parents.
No, it's what you're describing, what I used to call the involved parent, the involved
Right.
father. And I would ask the dads that I represented, have you been an involved father, or do you come home and kind of defer to mom to let her do the parenting?
Mhm.
And that answer usually was um, somewhat upsetting or concerning to the client. And so they had to be realistic about that. I said, if you were not an involved parent, an involved father, then you're not suddenly going to be uh, have all kinds of parental responsibility and parental success conferred upon you. It's a process, and it's a
It
process
is.
your children are going to have to adapt, and it's going to take some time and it's going to take some effort. But you can't expect to just walk in and have the court say, "Oh, well, that's okay. You haven't been an involved parent. You haven't gone to games or parent-teacher conferences or medical conferences and things like that." And suddenly, all those things are going to just naturally devolve upon you. That's not realistic thinking.
Right. Right, it's not, and the kids aren't going to just magically feel comfortable coming to you.
Mhm.
They're used to going to mom, and they may
Yes.
still wanna get on the phone and call mom or the other parent, it might be dad, but their instinct will be to call that other parent if they're with you rather than come to you, because it's just not familiar, and things that aren't familiar aren't comfortable. And some parents don't realize that. And they think they're just magically going to tell their kids, okay, it's only me here now. So while you're here, it's going to be me. And it's like, yeah, good luck getting them to feel that way. And a lot of kids will even keep things inside or wait until they get to the other parent's house to talk about them and address them because they're just not comfortable doing it with that parent.
No, and really the only thing that I can do is try to make expectations realistic of a
Mhm.
client. And so oftentimes that's quite a challenge because they think
Yes.
that instantly the judge is going to step in and confer all of this responsibility instantaneously when there's been no pattern of that, no um, habit of the parents' involvement. And I I see my grandchildren turn to both mom and dad, and I think that's awesome. Um,
Mhm.
my son is an involved father. He's very involved. His family comes first, and
Mm.
it's fun to see him parent. And
Yes.
he does a much better job than I did. And so, but it does take some effort, some extending oneself to be involved. It's sometimes easier to come home and say, I'm tired. I just want to watch TV and read the news or something like that. So it does take effort, and I would have to tell clients that you can't realistically expect that everything is going to be turned upside down simply because you're divorcing, because the children's security, their sense of safety and nurturance is going to be of primary concern of the court. And
Mhm.
if it's not, if there's not a pattern, uh, certainly the attorney's going to go after the uninvolved parent if it goes to court, and provide the court with evidence, if you will, that one parent or the other has not been the involved parent or an involved parent. And we're not suddenly going to upset that apple cart. And I think that's difficult because sometimes the non-involved parent expects that suddenly the court is going to apportion all of that time and all that responsibility uh, to both parents. It's
Mhm.
just realistic, and
No,
it's difficult for a client to hear that.
it is. And parents get real hung up on 50-50. They get real hung up on that. And it's like, you have not done 50% of the parenting ever. And so, why you would think that all of a sudden you should have 50-50? It's just not best for your kids. Is it fair to the parent? Sure. Is it fair to the kids? Not at all, because they aren't used to that. They aren't comfortable with that. They aren't familiar with that. And like I said, what you're not familiar with, you're usually not comfortable with. And like I said earlier, I use the word foreign. It's foreign to them. And kids can't just adjust and adapt, and parents expect that. It's like, well, I'm just as much their parent as the other parent. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. In their minds, are you? I mean, did you help create them? Yes. But in their minds, did you invest in them? Did you spend time with them? And most of the time, it's no. If kids are resisting or refusing to spend time with that parent, more times than not, when I say, did you spend a lot of time with them up till now? It's no.
Well, and I would see clients experience a sense of regret about that, but
Yes.
they don't just suddenly turn on a dime and change everything that's been established for years. And the 50-50 thing was very prevalent. I mean, I observed
Mhm.
that many people are very, very threatened unless they're talking about 50-50 time. And so it's very difficult to ask them to forego what they want because it's going to help their child. And
Right.
I only have minimal availability to try to teach them the reality of the situation because they want to know I'm fighting for them. Well, will
Right.
you fight for me for 50-50? Will you fight for me for this or that or the other?
Hmm.
And so we have to balance keeping that trust that we are willing and able to fight for somebody, uh, but there's a cost involved, not just financially, in fighting over the children. And
Right.
so, but that's where we end up, and we're going to take every opportunity in court to try to make the parent look um, not incompetent but irresponsible, let's say.
Yeah.
And
Or unpracticed.
yeah,
I don't know if that's a word, but unpracticed.
and so it's difficult.
Inexperienced. Yeah.
We're
I'm sorry. Go
and
ahead.
it's very, they find it very threatening, and I understand
Yeah.
that they feel like, gee, I could lose my children. And so we have to get past that feeling and that fear, and it's not easy.
No. And I have something that we'll talk about when we come back because we're going to take a quick break here in a minute. But I have something that I think will really help in that process if parents will consider it and follow it, do it. But there are ways to make it easier for the kids than what parents often recognize. So don't go anywhere. You're going to want to hear this when we come back. But we'll take a quick break. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, I said that I have a suggestion, a solution, if you will, for parents who have never been a parent and they step into, not significantly. They were there, but they weren't parenting a whole lot. They step into this role of being the only one there when they have their kids. And the kids resist and it doesn't go well. And parents just want to insist on having their time with the kids. My suggestion, and it really is, I think, foolproof, fail-safe, whatever you want to call it, is to do it in a step-up fashion. We do this with younger kids a lot, with babies and toddlers, step up the time. But even with older kids, if you just got divorced or separated and you've not parented a lot, let your kids get used to it in increments. Like don't try to start with 50-50. You're setting yourself up for failure. George, I'm going to let you take it because I know you agree with that.
Well, and it's difficult. The culture changed over time that I was in the courts, from fathers being basically disposable, I would say, where every other weekend and a weeknight dinner visit was sufficient for them to be a parent. And that was too bad, because I think the kids need the influence of both of their parents in their lives, and the ability to build into a schedule like that would be very desirable. But the courts are not typically going to be that flexible. The judge sets down an edict and a schedule and figures that's the end of it, and that's the way it'll be until the kids grow up. And that doesn't always meet their developmental needs, but there's not a lot that we can go into court and say, gee, judge, we now have a teenager. When you entered your order, the children were preteens, and now their needs have changed, and how about you revise that schedule? They're not real amenable to that.
No, that's true. But correct me if I'm wrong. if parents agree, and again, you'll get this one parent who won't agree because they want their time and want it now. And I understand they're skeptical or afraid of putting it off and going back to court later and getting more, because what if they don't? But can you not put in the plan up front that we're going to over time increase this parent's time, and even write out the schedule that for 6 months we're going to do this, and then we're going to add this day, and then add that, and we'll be at 50-50, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I suggest. I don't know what you think about that, but that way it gives that parent some time to learn. There's a learning curve built into the schedule.
Well, and what I face is one parent's resistance to that because they think it's going to impact child support. And
Right, right.
and it
And it
might.
does. It
It
does.
might.
Yeah. It might.
And
Yeah.
so we have to be realistic about that. But parents, I think if you say to a parent, "Are you willing to make a sacrifice for the benefit of your child?" Most every parent is going to say, "Yes, of course."
Hmm.
And then you can lead into, well, you may have to sacrifice a little bit of time that you want up front, but with a build-in type of an approach, you're going to recoup that.
Hmm.
And the investment in the children's best interests and their comfort emotionally requires a little bit of sacrifice on your part. And
Right.
most parents can sometimes grudgingly, but accept that rationale.
Right. Right. Well, and what I've had parents do too, and I don't know how you feel about this, so I could be opening a can of worms, but I have had parents come in and maybe they have a 50-50 order, but one parent's really struggling. And outside of the court, and that's where you might scold me and tell me this is not good, but outside of the court, we agree that one parent's going to have a little bit less time and then work up to that 50-50. So we'll get there. But right now, I'm going to ask you for 2 months to do this. And then for the next 2 months or 3 months or whatever after that to do this. And we just agree outside of court to bump it up, and again, give that parent a learning curve to get used to having the kids that much and parenting that much. So I don't know what you think of that. You might tell me that's a really bad idea, but I've had parents do it. And I'll tell you, it works quite well.
Yeah, it sounds like a very good solution to a problem. The problem being with that parent who is threatened by what's going on, or both parents if they're being threatened by what's going on. But the courts are don't have the flexibility that parents have if they will retain control over their own lives. And
Hmm.
doing that requires, as you've often said, loving your children more than you hate your ex, and
Yes.
we understand that's asking a lot of a parent who's going through divorce, who's angry, who is wounded, mistrustful, but we have to prioritize, if you will, how are we going to handle these children and their growing up process? And there's so much more flexibility and control if parents will work through those issues outside of litigation.
Yes. Yes. I understand parents not wanting to keep going back to court and take their chances. And the court gets a little annoyed with parents that constantly go back, which is why, at least in Colorado, once you've entered, and again, this isn't my area, so if I say this wrong, tell me. But once you've entered a final order, you can't go back for 2 years unless there's an issue of endangerment or a relocation of one of the parents who's going to move out of town or out of state, something like that. That's why, so that parents can't just go back to court and go back and go back. But a good solution is to agree off the record or on, I suppose. But I've had parents just agree, like they struggle. And I'll say, how about we just slow this down and back it up? And let's go back to this schedule. And then we'll add time. And not a bunch of changes, but a couple of changes. And they tend to ease into it quite handily.
Well, and they need to understand that from the attorney's standpoint, they have a lot more flexibility to enter into stipulated modifications than a judge is likely to hear something and maybe not modify anything.
Mhm.
So if they work outside the court and come up with a plan, unless I mean the court and of course where I'm going with this is we like to see a stipulation, an agreement that's filed with the court. Um, but a judge who is very amenable to agreed upon modifications is just as likely not to change anything in a hearing context. So
Mhm.
the ability to retain control over their lives to some extent and their children's lives is usually a very attractive opportunity for parents. And to do that, we have to say, then you're looking at something other than the litigation track.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I'm glad to hear you embrace that because parents sometimes think they can't do that. I mean, they'll say, well, we have an order. We have to follow the order. And I'm like, well, now do you? I mean, there's
Right.
there's a little flexibility in there, but we have to agree that we're going to use that flexibility in the best interest of the kids. And yeah, it's a challenge. This is all
Well,
a
and
challenge.
and parents, I mean, if they want to retain significant control over their lives and the children and how they interact with each other and co-parent and so forth, um, that is not easily achieved through litigation.
Right.
Litigation, it tends to harden positions uh, in the parents. They're more self-justified in their position, and they just don't have the flexibility, the easy give and take that they could have outside of the litigation track. And it's very simple. Once they reach an agreement, we write that up in a stipulation or agreement, file it with the court, and again, a judge, as long as it's not an outrageous type of agreement, a judge is going to be very willing to accept a modification. It's not a big deal when it's agreed to, and the judge is typically going to be amenable to that. When it's not agreed to, and we have to fight over it, that same judge is likely not to show the flexibility and the be amenable to the modifications that parents could make voluntarily working with each other. So, especially if there's a mental health professional involved, I think that makes the court a little more comfortable that what the stipulation provides has been reasoned and worked through with prioritizing the best interests of the children. That's more likely to happen with involvement of a mental health professional kind of guiding or helping smooth over rough spots. And the parents retain a lot of flexibility if they are working outside that litigation track. When that comes into play, the attorneys are probably going to try to uh, show the opposing party to be irresponsible or negligent, if not outright reckless. And that
Mhm.
doesn't help the parents' alienation of each other. And so parents, it would behoove them to really think through whether or not litigation is the best way to go. And oftentimes we have no choice. The parties'
Right.
positions put us in a position where we have to fight for their interests. We have to fight to try to have them be in a primary type of status as a parent. But that that kind of destroys any willingness to co-parent cooperatively. It's
Mhm.
just my lawyer can beat up your lawyer, and so I'm going to get what I want.
Right, right. Well, and like you famously say, and I still threaten to steal this from you, but no two co-parents ever litigated their way to a healthy co-parenting relationship. And that says it all right there, and it's so true.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And the cases where the parents have agreed, that they we see much less examples of them returning with conflict to their attorneys
Mhm.
or to the courts. They things just seem to go more smoothly, better. They try to exercise some conflict resolution without resorting to court and the attorneys and so forth. And so, if it's important to parents to retain that autonomy and that control over their own
Mhm.
lives, it behooves them to try to do it outside the litigation track. And then we have cases that we know they just have to go to court,
Right.
and it happens. And
Yep.
we're aware of that, but we certainly, I think, owe it to the profession, to the clients, to try to steer them in an alternative direction.
Yes. Yes. And as you and I have talked about many times, utilizing a mental health professional who is well versed in the courts, that's important. It's got to be someone well versed in the courts, is a much better plan than trying to do it yourselves. Because, George, you've heard me say many times, I can tell the other parent the same thing one parent tells them, and they'll receive it completely differently coming from me than coming from the other parent.
I think very much so, and I also, this is self-serving on my part, but I think that the client probably responds to counsel from a mental health professional, uh, as far as sacrificing a little bit of time or something like that. They may actually respond to that better coming from the mental health professional than the lawyer.
Right, because we're a neutral. We're a
Right.
neutral. I'm so glad to hear you say that because it's true. With an attorney client relationship, they expect you to advocate for them, period. They know when I come on board, I'm a neutral. I'm not picking mom's side. I'm not picking dad's side. I'm going to do what I think is best for the kids. And a lot of parents trust me to do that. And it's just the difference between your role and my role, because your role is to be an advocate and a fierce advocate for your client. Mine is to advocate for the kids and do what's in the best interest of them rather than advocating for this parent or that parent.
Well, and it seems as if it would remove or at least mitigate the win-lose dynamic.
Yes, yes. Because when you litigate, there is a win lose to that for sure, for
No
sure.
question. And oftentimes a divorce court is a court of loss.
Yes, yes.
You're going to go into court and you're going to hear what you receive and what you don't receive. And in terms of parenting, property division, and so forth. And there's very little you can do about it if you don't like the outcome,
Right.
because the grounds for appeal in divorce cases, parenting cases are very limited. And
Mhm.
so again, it's a matter of control over one's life.
Yes, yes. And like you said, it is a system of loss. It's a court of loss because you're not going to have as much time with your kids. You're not going to have as much money as you had together. So there's loss any way you look at it. That's just the way it is when people divorce.
I think that's true. That's very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Well, it's time to take another quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk about if your kids resist, what can you do about it? And I've got a couple of really simple suggestions. So we'll take a quick break, but be back shortly. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, George, we're talking about things parents can do if their kids resist spending time with them. And I'm going to throw out a couple of suggestions. You might want to throw out a couple of suggestions. I know you don't work with parents and kids on this issue a lot, not maybe directly, not with the kids at all. But these are the things that I have found that work. And with younger kids, it's just reassurance. Allow them to continue to have contact with that other parent when they're with you. Let them get on a phone call or a video chat when they're with you, with that other parent. Just things that make them feel connected and not just ripped away. And now I'm with a parent with whom I'm relatively unfamiliar. And then with teenagers, because we all know this is the real challenge, is teenagers. And I have a simple suggestion for parents, and I just can't emphasize this enough. Meet them where they are at. You go into their life. Don't try to pull them into yours. Go into theirs. Ask them what they're doing, who they're with, what they've been up to, what activities they're involved in and engaged with, and stuff like that. Don't try to pick their friends. Just get to know their friends. Because at this point, you can't do those things like you can do when they're younger, like pick their friends or insist they spend time with you. They will only resent you and want to be there less if you do that with older kids. Because as we talked about at the top of the hour, it's a developmental need for kids to spend more time with their friends and place a priority on their own world, their activities, their friends, their whatever it may be. But if you can show interest in that, not try to get your kids to develop an interest in things you like, but you get to know their likes and learn a little bit about it, become familiar with the things that they like. So I'll stop there and let you comment. Do you
Well,
agree with? Yeah. Go ahead.
I I think that is the purview of the mental health professional. We
Hmm.
don't get that opportunity to work directly with the children. And
Yes.
so it behooves the parent. We have to ask the parent not to see if a child wants to call the absentee parent, not to see that as threatening or
Right.
helicopter parenting, or any of those things, and be secure enough in their relationship, that they don't find it threatening. That if a
Right.
child, because they all have phones nowadays, and so
Yes.
if they want to call that absentee parent, to be secure enough in oneself to let them and not be threatened by that, is very important. Not to see that as helicopter parenting and so forth. Um, so the child, I guess, gets, and I would defer to you on this, but I guess the child feels secure and not cut off from either parent if they have the parents' full consent to call freely back and forth between the homes.
Yes. I am so glad that you said that, George, because another saying that I'm threatening to put up behind me here is, besides yours about not litigating your way to a healthy co-parenting relationship, one other that I think is just a really important statement to make to parents is the greatest gift you can give your children is permission to love the other parent. So, as you said, don't be threatened by that. When they're with the other parent, they might be dying to call you too and tell you about something, some accomplishment or something like that, or just something fun they did. But don't be threatened by that. And we often do see that. The parent who feels, for whatever reason, insecure in their relationship with the child, rather than doing the things that build that, they push them away. And the greatest gift you can give your kids is permission to love the other parent and have contact with the other parent. Tell them, sure, you can call your mom and tell her you're going to be excited to tell her, and she's going to be excited to hear it. And that's really important that parents be able to do. You hit the nail on the head there, because that's really what it's about, is show that you embrace them having a relationship with that parent, and they'll be much more inclined to have a relationship with you and want to share things with you.
Well, a lawyer that I know and respect very much, and I think he was a very fine domestic relations attorney, once said, "We're all working for the children."
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's a nice sentiment, and I think it's a ideal that would be nice to hit. But when we get that client who demands that we fight for them for everything they can get and so forth, we're legally obligated to do that.
Right.
And
Right.
so I don't know how that squares up with we all work for the children, but I think ideally we do if we can. Our
Right.
client almost has to allow us to do that.
Yes. Yes. And that's where the counselor at law comes into play. But it really does. And this is a great, preview for our topic next week, because we're going to talk next week about ways in which parents shoot themselves in the foot in these cases. And one is by not listening to your attorney, or the converse side of that, however you would say that, other side of that is, they listen to their attorney too much and defer only to their attorney. And maybe the attorney doesn't realize how much they want to cooperate or collaborate. But often parents just won't listen to their attorney. And like you said, it ties your hands, because you are then obligated to do what it is they want. And I'm sure there's some parents you just can't counsel as much
No,
as you try. Yeah.
and some of that I think is due to their pain and fear.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
we really, we don't, I think the presence of a counselor, a therapist in some context will really help with that fear and
Mhm.
the anxiety, the angst that the parent has about losing their children. Um,
Yes.
and really, the mental health professional, I think, is in a much better position to reassure the parent. We
Mhm.
do too. It's probably a two-sided coin where we try to reassure them they're not going to lose their children. They may not get exactly what they want in terms of
Mhm.
time or structure with the parenting plan, but the idea that they're going to be ousted from the child's life and so forth is just not realistic.
No, and often the parent who isn't real close with their child does the exact things that makes the child not want to have anything to do with them once they reach of age, once they're old enough, 18, basically, at least in Colorado. And I think that's every state. At 18, they can do what they want. And once they become of age, then don't do the things that will push them away. And some parents try so hard that they just smother them. And that's the exact thing that will make the kids want to have no contact with you at all once they can make that choice.
And I think that's difficult for a parent to hear.
It is. It is. George, it is sometimes nearly impossible for a parent to hear because they're so desperate and they don't
Mhm.
realize in a couple of years you're not going to have any say so anyway. And the wise parent says, "Oh, you're right. Maybe I better handle this more carefully." But you get a lot of parents who, I call it desperation. I think they're just desperate and they just want to force the child, and that will push them away every time.
I would like to see some sort of a seminar where there is legal interplay with mental health professionals and how they can coordinate their efforts. I think that would make for a good seminar.
Well, you just gave me an idea. I might have to put something along that line together.
Sounds good, and
Yes,
I'll be
and,
looking
and I
forward to
think
next week.
well, and since it was your idea, I think you can do that with me.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, we do have a great topic next week. We're going to talk about ways in which parents shoot themselves in the foot in these cases. So you won't want to miss it. But thank you, George, for being here. Thank you to all of you out there who listen to us each week. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.